Stop me. Stop me. Stop me if you think you've heard this one before. The old ABC cinema in Sauchiehall Street, I think it's getting knocked down just now. It's in the process of getting knocked down at this very moment. I think maybe taking their time. I've seen it on social media anyway. I've not been in Sauchiehall Street for a few months, so I don't know for sure. But it was definitely the old ABC cinema in Sauchiehall Street nearly 30 years ago. I was on a date, as the Americans would call it. I was a young man at the time with a young lady. I think she was a graduate. She just graduated. It was kind of film and TV. She'd been in a few jobs doing production and various television things. And we went to the ABC to see this movie that was the best part of 3 hours long, and we'd seen it in the advertisement, a lot of talk about it in the press because of the two main stars, and into the ABC, the auditorium, the actual cinema that we were in. I don't know if it was one or two. I don't know if it was just one in those days. I couldn't really tell you how many cinemas was in the ABC. Maybe was it 1, 2, 3? Was it cinema A, cinema B, cinema C? Probably. But a long time ago. I just remember at one point, I felt as if the lights were up during the film, and I have this memory of turning around behind me to see folk that were shouting, to see who it was shouting, and it was everywhere. It was going off it was kind of electric atmosphere. It was going off all around the cinema. But this wasn't, rapscallions making farting noises and what have you, and throwing sweeties at folks' heads, just causing a bit of disruption for their own amusement. This was people thought they were engaging with the film. They were actually shouting at the actors, thinking they were interacting with them. They were shouting at the actors, they were shouting at the screen, and it was all stuff pertinent to what was happening. And this film, this must be the first time they were seeing this film. It was just out, and I thought, what is going on here? And it was, I've always thought it must be film students, because they were talking to Al Pacino. Hey, Al, right, very good, Al. I don't know if it was, remember the film The Comic Strip Presents? They did the thing about the miners' strike, turned it into a kind of Hollywood movie, and it was a guy who was basically playing Pacino, playing Arthur Scargill, and it was taking the mickey out Al Pacino's predilection for hand movements. You always have to have something so you can do somebody's fingers. And the scene in the film where he comes home to his wife, his third wife, and he's just been, and she's like, where were you? I made dinner half an hour ago. I made dinner an hour ago. And he's like, I've got dead bodies off a sidewalk in Venice Beach, Justine. I'm sorry if the goddamn chicken got overcooked. And he's picking up his remote control for his wee portable television, but he's holding the remote control in the weirdest possible ways that don't really make any sense, but it's letting him do lots of finger actions. So maybe it's stuff like that. When he's ripping up the towels later to kind of save the life of his stepdaughter who's cut her veins and things like that. He's big on the fingers, big on the hand stuff. He's holding guns and all that all the way through it, so he's enjoying that as well. But I don't know if that's what it was, but it's quite an atmosphere in the place, quite memorable, and of course the film itself I found very engaging, but particularly it gets to the bit where there's this massive shootout, and I remember the gunfire, the gunshot, and I'd never heard anything like it before. Well, not in cinema, not in fiction, basically, but I had heard something like it before in any kind of news footage that I'd seen from a war zone. This was like real gunfire, and I was like, this is taking me right in here. This is something different, and it really kind of caught. Just all you need, just a wee hook, and then you'll go back to a film. And so we went. We went out after. Went straight across the road. Is it Shenanigans? This big, massive boozer. Maybe it's still there. I've not been in Sauchiehall Street for a while, but Shenanigans. This big boozer that was in the corner, massive pub. It was a proper kind of after work Friday night spot back in the day. Was it Jim Fleeton, the Kilmarnock manager, that owned it? I think he might have had a few pubs. Anyway, it's in there. We're talking about it, and I just said, well, that. We're talking about the film, the shootout, that was absolutely, don't want to be a bloke about it and all that, but that was absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed that. It was something that was really resonated. She's like, oh no, it's all done post-production. She's the gunfire and that, it's all done post-production. Anybody's watched these pods before, I've heard me talk about this before. It's all done post-production, and I'm like, I know, but that was really, you could hear it bouncing off the walls of the buildings and stuff like that. It was she's like, no, just the sound and the actual, like the little flames you see popping out the barrels of the guns in the end, that's just all put on post-production. He said the actors would just be running about the streets going, pichu, pichu, piang, piang. no sounds whatsoever coming from those fake guns. Just like when you were a kid running about the streets playing cowboys and Indians. I know that that's usually what happens, but I feel as if this was different. And anyway, it wasn't going well. It hadn't been a good day, and it wasn't going to go any better. And it was one of the ones that it was over before it even begun. And that's not a comment. I just mean it was the date, the relationship was over before it was. And of course, I love this. I started thinking, I want to see this again. So I don't know when it came out in Blockbuster. It must be Blockbuster Video in those days, but I'd get it and I'd watch it in my wee room with my wee video, and this is good. And there's more to it than that. And you start getting into the actual themes of the film, as well as just, the gunfire brings you in, and the big action scenes bring you in, but then there's so much more to it, and then it's, I think I hired it a few times from the video hire shops, as they were, those Blockbuster videos, whatever they were, and then it comes out on actual video. You can go and buy it. You're sitting there, so I went and bought the video, so I had my own video, and then it was DVD, and I got that. But this was all just within a few years of the Heat coming out, but it was always, there was nothing, there was no extras. It was 10 years later before there was a Heat DVD with extras, like an anniversary edition. I think it was 10, maybe it's 15 years, I can't remember. I seem to have waited a long time. So I got that straight away, and all the kids these days out waiting outside their phone shops to get the latest, Apple Pod, iPhone. I don't know what they're called these, but I got it and rushed home, and I'm loving the extras in it, because it gets to the bit about the shootout scene and Michael Mann or whoever's like, yeah, of course. Usually the gunfire is all put in post production, but we wanted to make it super realistic, so we used live rounds. I'm like, yes, in your face, person who I haven't seen for over a decade, actually married to somebody else right now, and I just had to explain to her who I was shouting at, and it's like, that was me, but I didn't get any there was no real triumph there, but I just, personal, I knew it. I knew it had to wait all the years, but the thing with the bit that gets, the scene where De Niro comes back to his apartment. Neil Macaulay, played by De Niro, comes back to it's not his apartment, it's his digs that he's got in LA during in the course of this story. But it's a absolutely amazing, luxurious beachfront, kind of California beachfront villa, kind of Mies van der Rohe, almost quite a lot of glass, and their kind of Bauhaus meets Art Deco type thing. I mean, Mies van der Rohe was a director of the Bauhaus, wasn't he? He's one of the directors of the Bauhaus. One of the kind of less sinister benefits to the USA from Nazi Germany was people who were getting away from the Nazis and come over. And Walter Gropius, he was the first director of the Bauhaus, and when I was in Chicago, there's an apartment block. Neil said a block of flats there, just to show where I come from. But there was an apartment block that I'm sure was a Walter Gropius design. It was Walter Gropius plans, but he wasn't actually there to oversee the building of it. But of course, the Chicago, Walter Gropius and Mies van der Rohe ended up in Chicago. When you Lakeshore Drive development, but Mies van der Rohe, various other buildings as well. You do the whole, architecture tour, the Chicago School. You're on the river and that kind of thing. It's amazing in Chicago if you're lucky enough ever to get there. But the Bauhaus influence with the guys. Well, that makes sense for the whole Neil Macaulay character to have a place like that, because it's form and function. It's getting the best out of every aspect of the design, making things work as the functionality is the beautiful thing about it. No kind of unnecessary ornament, and that's what he's all about. The Neil Macaulay character, because he needs to get things done. He's a man in a hurry. He spent so much time incarcerated. He knows life is short. Every time you get his luck, he says that later on at the Palisades when he's trying to convince Edie to come with him, even though she's just found out he's a murderer. But it suits him if it was Bauhausian, and he arrives. He gets into his place, and he sees it's been kind of broken into, slightly jimmied, and there's his pal, his colleague, his former co-resident of Folsom Prison. It's Val Kilmer playing Chris Shaherless, and he's lying on the floor. He's just been sleeping on the wooden floor, and he's got a jacket, his own jacket over him as a makeshift cover. There's no mattresses or anything like that. There's no sofa for him to crash on. He's just, because it's like you do when you're in your teens or your 20s, when you were crashing at a mate's and all you had was a jacket, you were at a party, there's too many of these in the place. And so Neil, he's just met Edie, and he's just spent the night with Edie, and that's why he's coming back in first thing in the morning as the California sun starting to shine through this beautiful blue of the sea out there. And he's like, "What happened to you? Where you been, basically?" Well, first thing is he picks up the phone. He picks up his phone, his wall phone, and he phones as Val Kilmer's waking up. He phones Val Kilmer's character's wife, Charlene Shahir, played by Ashley Judd, absolutely phenomenal in this film, as everybody is. And he says, "No, Chris is at mine. What's the problem?" And she's like, "Husband and wife stuff. Nothing that would concern you, nosy." All right, I'll let him sleep him off here. And he picks the phone down. And he's like, "What happened to you?" And Chris was just kind of coming out his drunken slumber. He's like, "When are you going to get some furniture in this place?" And when I get around to it, no furniture, just about it, just sleek, everything totally. I mean, you could have got some. Obviously, could have got a Barcelona chair, Mies van der Rohe, or when you're going to get an old lady, when I get around to it. And it's almost like women, women would be providing furniture for this place. It's because you don't have a woman. That's why there's no furniture here. Well, Marcel Breuer in the Vasily chair, he could have. That's a bloke that designed that as well. So it's getting a wee bit sexist and all that, but the whole point, it's more about love than a Nelson partnership. And he's saying Charlene's going to leave me. What for? It's not enough steaks in the freezer. What he means is, what Chris Shahir, played by Val Kilmer, means, of course, he's not got enough money coming in, because as Charlene has said to him, "You're a gambling junkie, risk versus reward, baby," and she's living the risk to her, living with a career criminal, never mind the risk to him that he's taking with all these criminal activities. They're not bringing enough money, and any money, they're bringing in enough money, but then he gambles it away, so that's led to problems in their marriage. And basically, it ends up that De Niro just says to him, "I don't know what you're doing. Remember Jimmy McElwain in the yard?" And briefly, Val Kilmer, Chris Shahir, looks at him and watch that scene. Watch Val Kilmer's elbow in that scene. There's a massive growth on the end of Val Kilmer. It's actually Val Kilmer. It's not Chris Shahir's elbow. It's Val Kilmer's. I thought maybe that's a thing that guys who do bank jobs and that, safe crackers or something, develop some sort of strange, big, massive, pus-filled boil thing on the end of their elbow, but not just something that Val Kilmer had picked up offset. It was a real thing, and it's one of the things to look out for in the film, in that particular scene where he's sitting in a wee he's basically sitting in a poof. Remember your gran used to call it a wee poof? He's sitting in this little kind of poofy, and De Niro's got the one armchair that's in the room, and he's saying, "Remember Jimmy McElwain in the yard?" He's like, "Nah," just gives him a look as if to say, "No, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm trying to find my fags here so I can wake myself up." He said, "If you're, do not attach yourself to anything you're not prepared to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat coming around the corner." He's basically said, the guy saying, if you're going to be a criminal, and the police are going to be on your tail, you've got to be ready to drop everything. So you can't be having, partners, relationships, you can't be having women in your life or anything like that. You certainly can't be having a marriage or kids or anything. You just got to be able to go in 30 seconds flat. And Val Kilmer just gets back. Chris Shahir just turns around and says, "For me, the sun rises and sets with her man. For me, the sun rises and sets with her man." And I just thought it's the most beautiful. There's a few other lines in the film that are really beautiful, but that's one that stayed with me ever since I first saw this film in 1995. For me, the sun rises and sets with her man. And Neil just looks at him and goes, "Yeah, okay." And it's like he's just realised, because he's just met a woman that's slowly changing his outlook on life. It's confusing him, professionally, but he's starting to, and that's the crux of the film. It's the work-life balance, and Mies van der Rohe is from Chicago. Michael Mann, the director, is from Chicago, and the original Neil McCauley was shot dead in Chicago because the bank job that is in Chicago is based on the bank job at the centre of heat. Is based on a shootout at a grocery store. I think I'm a head office for a grocery store, but really there was people in there. It's like a wee supermarket, so a kind of chain in Chicago, and I was on that street. I was at the top of that street, and the heat coming around the corner. I mean, it was absolutely roasting. The flight was leaving that night, and it was about lunchtime, and it's like, I don't have any more time to do this. I'd done it wrong. I should have got a taxi or something, but I'd started thinking I could walk down, but it's one of the massive American city streets that goes on for miles and miles. It's like the length of Scotland, basically. and I couldn't get. I knew I was going block by block. I was getting closer, but it just came a point. I thought, no, I'm going to go back to the nearest L line, the nearest station on the L, to get back to the hotel, so we can go and catch our flight to get back home. And I don't know if I'll ever be back in Chicago. It's a once in a lifetime holiday, but yeah, I was on that street and I was so close yet so far. I could feel the heat coming around the corner. It was absolutely roasting. An old baldy ex-ginger like me, and I was going to, apart from anything else, going to get skin cancer or pass out. So I just had to turn back around and give up on it. But I felt the heat coming around the corner, and I walked away in maybe 30 minutes flat. But the idea that you can't have anything in your life, you can't have anybody in your life that you love or whatever, because it'll interfere with you getting to the top in your job, and then you get to the top in the job that you're so good at, you get to the very top of your career, then you get nobody to share that glory with, or the money that you get from it with. You get nobody in your private life, and it's a tragedy. It's a dichotomy, and one that a very successful and very busy film director like Michael Mann will be aware of. And that was the whole thing about that beautiful scene, that beautiful moment. De Niro's starting to realise that maybe it's worth taking it back on the job front just to make sure. And after I'd watched this film so many times on DVDs and videos and what have you, I eventually noticed when he says Jimmy McElwain, De Niro's mouth's moving funny. Watch it. Remember Jimmy McElwain in the yard? This yard at Folsom Prison. That's not what he's saying. That's his lips aren't saying McElwain. Something very close to that. But it's also the sound slightly different as well. Like infinitesimal. You can tell though. You can tell it's been cut and pasted, and it's De Niro's voice. So he's dubbed himself as if he's the English, actor putting in the on top of an old Chinese kung fu movie or something like that. It's an old Hong Kong kung fu movie. It's really not badly dubbed, but you can definitely tell. And I'm thinking, what would lead an absolute, an anal retentive, like a perfectionist like Michael Mann to do something like that? And the only explanation I could come up with, the McElwain's quite a clumsy name, and it's like it's been designed to fit perfectly across the movements of De Niro's lips when he's saying the original. Whatever the original name was, it's in the script. I'm thinking they must have said the name like McElvanny or something like that, McAllister or something. That's actually turned out to be, they've found out after the film's been made, after it's all been shot, that this guy is an actual real name of a guy who's probably in trouble with the police, maybe an alleged bank robber, maybe a mobster. No, he hung about this. Chuck Adamson was the guy who shot the real Neil McCauley. He was a cop who actually shot him outside and he became a friend of Michael Mann's in Chicago. He would tell him all these police stories, and he told him the story about how him and Neil McCauley had went for a cup of coffee together. And he told him, I don't want to have to shoot you, but I will. And he said, well, I'll have to shoot you if we bump into each other. And it was all very cordial, and the professionalism, really nice. I like that. The dedication to the job, it doesn't mean you have to be bitter about it and all that. And that was, so that's all that happened in Chicago. And then this is De Niro's doing this stuff, and but the idea was, I thought maybe he knows some mobsters, or a lot of the guys that advised him were actual career criminals that advised Michael Mann, Artie Bunker. That's who John Voight bases his performance on. It's a real life criminal. It's a great performance. John Voight's completely cracked up recently. Him playing Nate is just one of the best performances in the whole film. It's fantastic. But I thought maybe Michael Mann's got mixed up with actual. He's ended up just using one of the names without knowing it, that he knows from the streets, so to speak, and they're going to get him, or they're going to sue him. He's going to get sued with it. But he's got De Niro in and said, you're going to have to change that name. So I'm on the Facebook, believe it or not, I'm one of the top contributors on the Heat, the perfect heist movie, Heat, the greatest heist movie Facebook page. And I was just getting to know the guys. It's all mostly Americans, and there's a lot of guys just posting pictures. Oh, there's guys with suits and guns. That's fantastic. Heat, way. That's fine. But there's a few other boys who are posting a lot of detailed stuff, and I thought, they get it. I'm okay here. I'm safe to open up to the kind of level of detail I can get into with Heat. I'm not going to get laughed at. And I said, have you noticed that scene? When he first says that it's the central tenet of the whole film. The tenet of the bit about you got to walk away, 30 seconds flat, feel the heat around the corner. When he says Jimmy McElwain, it looks like he's dubbed. And guys, they went, you're right, it is. Yeah, I've noticed it. And I'm thinking, what? And I told him my wee theory. He must have named somebody else. I would love to know what the original name in the script is, what he actually said. is it McAllister, McElvany or something? I don't. And so amazing stuff. The Facebook, the Heat, the Greatest Heist movie Facebook page, real tight crew. Drop of a hat, these guys will rock and roll. And next thing, somebody's got the script. The first few pages of the script. Oh, I've got the actual because the script hadn't been published, and I don't know why it'd make a fortune. Somebody else went, where did you source that? Where did you get that? Right, okay, I'll go and check that source. And they would come back with another few pages of the script. We couldn't get the whole script, but eventually somebody got the page in which that scene takes place, in which that line takes place. And it says the original script. It says Jimmy, what's his name? It's because they couldn't remember. The idea was that the Neil Macaulay character couldn't remember the name of the guy who'd said this, but he then lived by that code for the rest of his life. And I think the way De Niro says it, I mean, if you said, what's his name? Like, I can't remember the guy. You would look kind of quizzical. You'd be a bit kind of, oh, you remember Jimmy? Or a bit dismissive. Remember Jimmy? What's his name? Anyway, he said this, right? But De Niro doesn't deliver it like that. I think Michael Mann's brought De Niro back in to say, no, you're delivering it like it's somebody's actual name. So you're going to have to make it somebody's name. Or Michael Mann has just realised you would remember the name of somebody who told you the code by which you live your entire life. You would remember their name. It's Jimmy. It's got to be Jimmy somebody. Jimmy McElwain will make it, because you would remember the person who had told you, particularly in prison where everybody's really tight and you've got to know everybody. You've got to know everybody in prison. You got to know. I mean, like for example, when they what's his name, Danny Trejo, can he make the bank heist when he pulls out of being the getaway driver? They just go up to the guy who's the grill man in the diner that they're all waiting in. Breeden, played by Dennis Haysbert, and he knows Neil, and they know him straight away. When Al Pacino's character Vincent Hanna is talking to Tone Loc, who's the grass. And he grasses up Michael Chirito. It's because they bunk together or whatever in prison, and he says to him, what's his name? Chirito, Michael Chirito. When you're in jail, it's all about trusting folk. It's particularly if you're in the same cell as them, you've got to remember their name. So I think he's decided that that is long enough. I'm having to do this longer and longer every single time we have a bad result. I've got to drag this thing at the beginning to try and get rid of all the Celtic fans, and it's having to get longer and longer because they're getting on to me. So it's got to be more boring, it's got to be more drawn out. It means my pods are getting longer, which means I've got to wallow in the pain longer. I'm starting to think it's a zero-sum game. I'm just going to stop doing that. How you doing, folks? My name is Alec. I think this is your fat. How do I usually? This is your. It's been a bad night, and I really don't know what to be saying. I don't know how to be reacting to this, because I've actually had people get in touch with me. A couple of folk getting in touch with me on social media and various places, telling me that I can't be having an even-minded, calm reaction to this tonight. People actually get like, I'm flattered that they think if I don't mention it, then it's no real. If I don't mention that Philip Clement isn't leaving us, that Philip Clement might not get sacked. If I don't mention that, then he's definitely getting sacked. Everybody wants him sacked. Everybody wants him sacked now. But it's like people are scared that you're the voice of reason. I think they're confusing voice of reason with stupid, happy, clapping, overly optimistic. Reason might be taking us towards a point where Philip Clement gets sacked. This is your Fat Egg post. Rangers have mucked up again away from home domestically, because we never muck up away from home in European terms under Philip Clement, to the point where Philip Clement's coat is at least in the same room as a shaky peg reaction pod, coming to you in association with Jersnet. Check out Jersnet live on YouTube every Friday at 9 o'clock, every Sunday at 9:30, in association with Jersnet, and also in association with red shirts, Romanians wearing red kits. Romanians wearing all red kits coming off the park. Coming off the park at Ibrox and coming down the tunnel. I don't know, last Thursday night, is that the FCSB away kit? I'm sure it must be, because surely they must wear the red and blue that Stoy Bucharest always wore. I know there's another Stoy Bucharest, but when I come off the park last Thursday night, I suddenly just Romanians in red, and it was Adrian Mutu Adrian Mutu played for Fiorentina. And we played Fiorentina in the UEFA Cup semi-final, as you'll remember, 2007, 2008, and I was gutted, but I don't know why, because I don't know what else I was expecting when they were wearing their red away kit. I think I was hoping we were going to be wearing our away kit, which we did in the away leg, obviously, but when I first started got European games, the home team wore their away kit. Fiorentina, the famous violet, the La Viola, Laviola. I was wanting to see them in their home kit. And it's still the only time I've seen Fiorentina in the flesh, and the iconic kit. Still, they've got the Fleur de Lis badge. That was enough for me. But they're wearing it all red, and that seemed to match how the game went. Just a 0-0 draw, and of course all the drama. 0-0 in the second leg, but we won it on penalties. One of the greatest nights ever. But I wasn't at that. I was watching that in the telly. I went to the final though. The second time I was at the semi-final second leg, but I wasn't at the final, in 2022. But I'll try to avoid getting to the point here. They come off the park that the other night, and it reminded me of just Adrian Mutu, because he's Romanian and he'd played for Chelsea and Juventus and all that. But it was at Fiorentina. He was playing against us that night. We played them in the UEFA Cup semi-final. And I always remember him coming off the park. I'm sure it was Adrian Mutu that was with Davy Weir, and Davy Weir, I think, we swapped jerseys with him. And maybe it was an Italian player, whatever. He's got the bronzed kind of Serie A type body under his shirt, looking the part. There's Davy Weir, got his chalk white, his wee man boobs and all that, and yet Davy Weir is maybe one of the greatest. He's definitely one of the greatest defenders I've ever watched in my life, and a guy I would have seen happily watched him playing for Rangers into his 70s, which he still could probably. It was just, for some reason, Adrian Mutu stuck it in my mind, and it just reminded me last Thursday night of us getting booed off the park at half time in that game at Ibrox. I had waited my entire life. We'd been in a de facto semi-final in the Champions League in 92-93, getting a goal. In fact, it was closer than a semi-final to the final, because we're just a goal away in Marseille from reaching the final. But this was the first out-and-out semi-final of European football Rangers had been in my, not in my life. I was 2 years old when we got to, when we beat Bayern Munich to get to the final in Barcelona when we won the Winners' Cup. But the first one I could remember, and I'd waited for this my whole life. I really had, and I was well into my 30s. I was approaching 40 rapidly at this point, and I'd always dreamed of going to a Rangers game, where it was light midweek, a European game that was light midweek, not because it was a July qualifier, but because it was a late springtime semi-final Ibrox, and here it was happening. And the Rangers supporters, they get booed off this park, because it was 0-0 at half time. They get booed off the park. It will never change. We'll never be happy. We've never been happy. The whole time I've been supporting Rangers, there's been a body of fans who have been really upset about shit. Or whether it is, people were calling us losers and all that. I know Celtic fans were primarily doing that, and that's fine. That's their job. But when we lost the UEFA Cup final on penalties, excuse me, I'm taking this one badly. A complete physical breakdown. They were calling us losers and all that, and that's not good enough. And you go, because we didn't win the league compared to the Scottish title, compared to getting to a European final. Absolutely. A far superior achievement getting to a European final, something for the ages. But we won the league the previous season, but no, it still we're losers again. People are actually angry. It's amazing how something that's supposed to be amazingly memorable. Oh, getting to a European final. No, look at this. What a journey. It's all over the television. It's fantastic. It's really emotional. We get beat up shite. So there's always been that, and we're at that situation again. With Philip Clement, and Walter Smith was absolutely raging. Walter Smith was raging with the support. Walter Smith's allowed to be raging with the Rangers support by that point in time, and he had his say about that. He said that he had his say with the We Deserve Better crowd that were about at that point in time as well. He thought that was a lot of nonsense, and it was, when you look back on it. My God, it was. Winning, if it wasn't in the league, if we want to win the league, we're getting to a European final and winning both cups. It was winning both domestic cups, unbelievable. We booed off the park in the first European semi-final out and out that I'd ever attended, watching Rangers. And when Walter came in for that second spell of his, of course, it was January 2007. It had been Paul Le Guen. and it had all gone wrong over the kind of Christmas, the festive period, 2006 for Paul Le Guen, who I was totally invested in. It was a real case of kind of slightly delusional xenophilia with myself, where I just thought, yeah, well, this guy's been in charge of Leon. You know, I can't look at it's weird. I can't look at the screen. I'm looking away. That's a wee kind of sign that things are bad. Obviously, a wee giveaway there. A wee tell. I can't face up to my own fat face. How sad it's feeling tonight. But Walter Smith had to come in to take over from Paul Le Guen. I thought getting Paul Le Guen in, that was just the answer, because the thing at then was it was already known that we had to save money, that we're having to tighten the purse strings. So we're going to get somebody in who's going to make us win in Europe and also the domestic scene. That's going to require some special skills. Go to a foreigner. Obviously, that was the thing. It worked all right with Dick Advocat. He had a bit more money. But he was this guy that was doing it with Lyon, winning the French league with Lyon in successive seasons. So yeah, he's going to be absolutely fantastic. He's going to know what he's doing, and he brought in these players that we didn't know. This guy Sasa Papac, who was out at half time on Sunday there doing the half time draw in the St Mirren game, and Philip Sebo and all these guys that were just going to be absolute superstars for Rangers, and Sasa Papac definitely was. And we didn't beat Celtic. We got beat at Parkhead, was it 2-0, and then we drew 1 each of them at Ibrox, and that was just no good enough. We were in our first ever time I'd seen Rangers in a European dead rubber in a group stage. A dead rubber because we were through, not a dead rubber like against, what was it, FC Zurich? No, was it Grasshopper Zurich? Because we were already out. But a dead rubber because we were already through was under Paul Le Guen in that UEFA Cup group stage in 2006, 2007. Then we go over to Livorno, win in Italy, beat Italians in Italy. And he was great in Europe, and that was, to me, that was always a sign of being in the classes there, but it wasn't happening quickly enough domestically. Then you had the whole thing with Barry Ferguson. It was this culture clash. Basically Barry didn't have any, and Paul Le Guen had culture, and I could feel myself just being. I had a terrible thing happen with my family that Christmas, like the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Basically, it happened to my mum and dad over Christmas that year, something that just changed my life completely. And so I was in a bad place, kind of emotionally anyway, and I got a bit fixated. It led to me putting too much into the whole kind of, I was hating the stupidity of the Barry Ferguson thing, when it gets a bit cultish. No, Barry, but it was Barry Ferguson versus Paul Le Guen, and of course I was at the game at Fir Park, the armband, the captain's armband, get given to Gavin Ray. Barry Ferguson was never going to play for Rangers again as far as Paul Le Guen was concerned. They dropped him, sacked him, basically. And we go to Fir Park for this league game, and the whole crowd's singing, Le Guen's got to go, it's Barry's, Le Guen. They get interviewed before the game, and I was going, I can hear folks singing stuff. They were enjoying the kind of... it's very reminiscent of stuff that's happening just now. In politics, and people just wanting a rammy, because it was bad. It was really bad. It was not nearly as bad as stuff that's happening just now, but it was very reminiscent of that, in which it was a kind of a feeling of purported disquiet, kind of supposed unrest. It was really just a bit of boredom, and people a chance to get worked up. If the football wasn't getting us excited, we'll get ourselves excited about something else. And of course, we win the game 1-0. And Chris Boyd, who's there tonight at Pittodrie, Chris Boyd scores the goal and does the old six celebration on behalf of Barry. We're all Barry Ferguson. And did you ever hear the story? Paul Le Guen gets sacked anyway. Barry Ferguson gets reinstated, and there's a game against Dundee United, which is Walter's first game back, and we're winning 4-0. Barry Ferguson scores the fifth goal to make it 5-0. And it's the closest I've come to not celebrating a Rangers goal in my entire life. It was terrible. Barry Ferguson's one of the greatest players I've ever seen in my life. He's certainly one of the greatest Rangers players ever. But I just, on my way to that game, I'd been at the Scottish Cup game up at Dunfermline, up at East End Park, where Barry was effectively player manager, and Ian Durrant's in the dugout. We've got rid of that, Le Guen, that's fine. Back to common sense, and we're 3-0 down at half time to a Dunfermline team who I think get relegated, or certainly hadn't won at home all season. 3-0 down at half time, brought it back to 3-2, but out we went to the Scottish Cup. And in comes Walter, the smart thing. But on the way to that game against Dundee, I'm really emotionally confused about the whole thing. On the way to that game against Dundee United, I remember there being, I'm sure, I don't know if you remember this, I don't know if there's a story that you know of. I think it was Chick Young on Radio Scotland. I'm driving to the game, is doing one of his kind of hysterical, I've seen this, I can tell you this is something which never seemed to get picked up. I'm sure he said that David Murray and Barry Ferguson were having a square go, basically. And I'm thinking, he's not got any legs. David Murray doesn't have any legs. I know he played the rugby and all that, and he's obviously game. But I'm thinking, how's that going to work? And Walter Smith had to step in. Maybe I dreamt this because it suited what was going on in my head at the time. But Walter Smith had to step in and split them up because it was a very heated conversation. And I'm thinking, that must be Murray saying, this is your fucking fault with all your running to the press and all your OTT kind of, the team's not been run the way I want it to be run. You're no more powerful than the manager and blah blah blah. Anyway, went out there and Barry scores the fifth goal and that's fine. Did he remember the night he got the captaincy for Advocate, which was a lesson for Amoruso, and Amoruso's at him the whole game, and then Barry steps up and scores against United, and that was it. And I thought that was brilliant from that night. Then he makes his comeback, doesn't he? He made his comeback. Blackburn Rovers comes on in the League Cup semi-final against Dundee United. It was 7-1 that night at Hampden, and then there he is. Barry, he scores that goal to say that I won, I get rid of Guen, I'm still the man. And it was against Dundee United at Tannadice the season after that we won the league title, and he was allowed onto the park to lift the trophy because he'd been dropped by Walter Smith and basically told to go to Rangers. And it was just one of the moments, years later after, the DVD telling you it wasn't post-production, it was real gunfire. And I'm sitting going, this is the moment, we've won the league now, it's fantastic. And there's Barry, Walter Smith came as well. He did the whole thing with Scotland and that, and Walter had been the Scotland manager, where he'd also replaced a foreign manager that I was really invested in because he was foreign and because he'd been. Even the Germans were telling us it's a Ryan guy, and I'm thinking, well, Germany, you used to winning World Cups. No, bet you folks only manage you to the Euros, so you're probably you're being slow. You're spoiled. You don't get that'll do fine for us. And they're like, no, he's just terrible. And they were right. He was just terrible. The worst Scotland manager I've ever known, and Walter comes in and turns that round as well. So he was just replacing a useless foreign manager, was Walter. And it's that I've got this far without saying the poverty of historicism, a theme of recent pods. Because the other thing I have to remember is when Walter come back in to replace Paul Le Guen, I was asked at the end of that season, which we won both the Old Firm games that were left that season, and Walter certainly got us going again. I did the thing when Saturday comes, the wee pre-season survey thing. They do one. They ask a supporter of every team in England and in the league in England and the top flight in Scotland. What do you think of last season? How are you going to go on next season? And I was doing the Rangers one, and I just said, Walter Smith's back, so we'll definitely win the league, but we'll go to Europe pretty early. And because although Walter had taken us closest we've ever got to winning the European Cup, the Champions League had just become probably, arguably still the greatest European run in our history, if you like, even though we actually won the Winners' Cup and got to a few other finals. Arguably that 92-93 run to within a goal of the Champions League final is our best ever European run. But before and after that, we've been pretty woeful under Walter in Europe. And I thought, he'll be able to win the league and all that, but it's that kind of, but we don't have the foreign wiles to win. We're totally unsophisticated. But of course, Walter had been and learned. He had got even better, and so I predicted out of Europe early, we'll win the league. We didn't win the league, but we got to a European final, the first one we'd got to in 36 years. So there was a kind of, I was wrong, but I was also right about Barry. And off he went. It was just, I feel it's the same kind of situation as a foreign manager, and straight away it's like he doesn't understand this club. It's not going to work, and it depends what the idea is. It depends what we're trying to do here. I think a lot of us are saying, a fella got in touch with me tonight on Twitter saying it's not a rebuild, it's downsizing, and I think it's not been made perfectly clear, but I think we've all taken it as read that that's what's happening. We are downsizing. We're trying to get the wage bill down. We don't have a lot of money coming in. We've made some losses. We're trying to reduce the wage bill, cut the squad down. So in order to win the league and play well in Europe, and we need to play well in Europe to get in more money, we're going to have to come up with something special. Aberdeen get Jimmy Thelen in, and he has just hit the ground running. They're not in Europe. as the manager said, and as I was saying in the preview pod last night, they're not in Europe. They don't have that on their plate. And also, Aberdeen are downsized. Aberdeen, this is, it's taken them 30 years to manage to get this kind of manager in the door who can get this kind of... They've never started a season like this. We just completed a record for them tonight. Which is them beating us by 2-1 at Pittodrie in tonight's SPFL Premiership match. My name is Alec Anderson. There's a club if you'd like to go. You could meet somebody who really loves you. So you go and you stand on your own, and you leave on your own, and you go home, and you cry, and you want to die. How soon is now? How soon is now? Because I've already waited too long, and all my hope is gone. Who are you going to get in? Who are you going to get in? That's the thing for me, and maybe that's just depression speaking. You get to a point where you just give up. Right now you're thinking anybody would be better. When people are telling me we should get a temporary manager to the end of the season, I like to think, like, we had Walter coming in January 2007, and I was like, yeah, that feels good. Who is it around just now? With everything we've been through, everybody we've been through, who is around just now that you would just feel, yeah, he'll definitely come and he gets the club in a way that Philip Clement never will. He understands what it's all about. Who are you going to get in? Do you know the only person I can think of, the closest to get, Derek McInnes? And I don't even know if he'd be interested. And he certainly wouldn't be interested in coming in as a caretaker manager for the rest of the season. And he knocked us back, and he's probably pish. He's probably really good at upsetting the likes of Rangers with teams. Is he able to, lead from the front and all that? And Chris Boyd tonight was trying to do his Andy Walker, but he was trying to do at the same stadium. Again, talking about the club, the Old Firm club that he used to score a lot of goals for. Remember Andy Walker, when it was Ronnie Delia was in charge of Celtic, and it was Derek McInnes' Aberdeen, and we weren't even in the top flight, which made it all the more embarrassing. And Aberdeen had beaten Celtic at Pittodrie, and it was looking like they were actually going to mount a challenge, and Celtic were going. The only time typical Aberdeen, the only time I've ever actually wanted them to win the league, they didn't quite manage it. And Andy Walker just did the whole thing about, I would sack him now. I would get rid of him now. We're in danger, I know, winning this league. And it was just, he meant it. And that's what Chris Boyd, I feel like Chris Boyd just can't manage that. He just can't come across like he's, sincere, like he's for real. It's just him and Chris Sutton just obviously being told, keep it controversial, guys. It doesn't seem to have any feeling for it. It doesn't seem to understand what's going on at Rangers. He just wants everybody to be unhappy. Some of the stuff that was coming out for... I love Boydie, obviously, as a player and that. I think he's a great guy. But this Sky attitude to things. Chris Sutton, by the end of that coverage tonight, was saying Rangers... It's kind of stochastic terrorism. He's not saying Rangers supporters should go to Ibrox and, attack the team bus. But he's saying Rangers team are lucky their bus won't get back to a certain time tonight, because really, Celtic fans, they attacked the Celtic team bus when they didn't win the league. The last time they didn't win the league, so really, basically, do Rangers fans care as much? Well, prove it by going and attacking the team bus. He didn't say that exactly, did he? So he can't just. But it was horrible stuff. And Chris Boyd's whole thing about, what was it, sports scientists? They'll not get sacked. It's like anti-science. It's, I know what he's meaning. I know what he means, that you shouldn't be, just because a player doesn't, isn't being ruled as being 100% fit, doesn't necessarily mean you have to drop him. But it's this kind of atavistic, backwards, back in my days, men were men kind of thing. It's no healthy. It's just all about creating a kind of hysteria. And I've been there before, so with the whole Barry Ferguson versus Paul Guen thing. I just don't think it's healthy at a time like this. It's going to happen, obviously. It's going to happen because of such poor away form. What can I say? It's more difficult, more apposite, more needed, I think, to discuss why Philip Clement should not be sacked. Everybody's got plenty of reasons as to why he should be sacked. So why shouldn't he be? Why shouldn't he be sacked? Well, obviously, we've only lost one goal at Ibrox domestically all season. Okay, I'm being a bit cheeky there. It's, at home, we've lost 2 goals domestically all season. That one, Motherwell at Hampden, I think Robin Proper own goal. So Robin Proper's been quite responsible for any goals we've lost at home this season, domestically anyway. But that St Mirren goal on Sunday there was Debatable, seriously debatable, whether it was a corner in the first place and push on the goalkeeper on another day could have been ruled out. So that was, we don't lose a lot of goals at home. The European record, I was talking about this last night. I was talking about the pros for people to come on last night because I knew there was a major chance we could get gubbed by Aberdeen. So we've only gone down by 2-1. That in many ways is a bonus. But the European form, the away form anyway, it's not lost 5 games away from home in Europe, not lost one yet. So that's definitely going for him. And the main thing that's going for him is we are downsizing, and he has been given the task of rebuilding us and clearly hasn't been given the amount of players he needed, even in that summer just gone there. And I think that obviously the sudden need to move to Hampden probably affected that. The fact that there's no directors and the board has affected that as well. And I think Clement will be derided as the batty, overly touchy, sensitive foreign manager for his, particularly on Sky. Was it Luke Shanley who was interviewing him? There's a couple of Scottish guys that do the interviews on Sky. I can never remember who one swap. I think that was Luke Shanley. The post-match interview, he seemed to be kind of losing it a bit, getting a bit angry, but I quite enjoyed it. I think it needed saying. I think it needed re-pointing out. When you start mentioning 2012 to Rangers support, you're doing Mark Warburton at Tynecastle, his last game in charge, impersonations. When you start to tell us you should be grateful, I mean, we're only, what was Warburton saying? We're only in the lower league last season. We shouldn't be expected to come and win the title, the top title first season. But no, we shouldn't be getting beat 4-1 anywhere. It's always a dangerous thing when you start telling us to calm it. As the Rangers manager, you're not Walter Smith yet before you can do that, but I think it needs to be said. You don't want to go back to 2012, do you? It might be the last thing he says as Rangers manager. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow, or today, probably as you're watching this on Thursday. But I felt it needed saying that we are downsizing, basically. And I think you can see that's why Clement got the extra year in his contract, because he knew he was going to be taking a flat like this because he couldn't make it work that quickly. But Jimmy Thielen's hit the ground running. He's got brought in, it's £2 million he spent. All these players have just hit the ground. They're literally running, literally energised and what have you, because they're not playing the same amount of games as us. And the manager pointed that out as well. We don't like managers who make excuses. We certainly don't like the fact that Philip Clement tonight said that was one of our better performances this season. That's not good. When we get beat 3-0 at Parkhead, he just said, okay, statistically, we actually did quite well today. That upset enough Rangers supporters. So this time we've only got beat 2-1. He's taken it a stage further. Actually, one of our better performances this season. But I think that's I think that's what he's aiming for. It's like if we're going to be able to do, winning league titles and performing in Europe on a budget, having to clear out the whole playing staff. And there's only 2 of them left. Hadji and Tav are the only ones really, like the main guys that are left. And Tav might never be seen again after his performance tonight. That's a hell of a lot. That's a hell of a lot of players to replace, and we haven't been able to do that properly. And also, it's a hell of a task that's been set. These players, they don't just have to win in Scotland; they've got to win in Europe as well. And it's a massive, massive club. Jimmy Thielen, the Aberdeen manager, seems like a lovely guy. Seems like a really nice guy. The Rangers job would eat him alive. It would chew him up and spit him out. He's not got it. He's just just hearing the guy on the, you're actually like, I hope Aberdeen do quite well this season. I'm glad they beat us tonight. What a lovely fella. That's never, he would get chewed up and spat out with the Rangers job, and that's why I just think who can we get in that's instantly going to have our trust and know how to handle it. And Derek McInnes just took one look at it, got offered it and said no. And I don't know what Evan he's learnt since then. He could, but it's I think the peak of his career's gone. I don't know. I really don't know who we're just doing the same thing again, but another foreign manager. We're going to have to, or maybe not necessarily a foreign, but if it's somebody coming from outside Scotland, this whole thing of we need to get in somebody who knows the job and who knows the club and all that. There just aren't that many characters around. I don't know if we can afford to change the manager. But of course it'll get to a point where we can't. This whole thing of the crowds are going to go down, and they will go down. This is just what happens with football fans. But we're going to have to start taking action. We're going to have to start. But don't come fucking back then, as far as I'm concerned. Just don't come back. You know what I mean? What the fuck? I mean, you're breaking my heart. We're only winning 3 trophies in 4 seasons. I know at Rangers now it's about stopping Celtic. And the way we stop Celtic now is we have to win more trophies than them. It's going to be a race to top. But it's not exactly a hard life. I really don't think it's a hard life at all. There's got to come a point where you just support you. There has to be something other than winning trophies that lets you support your club. There's got to be another reason. You know, like a lot of people from Aberdeen support Aberdeen because they're from Aberdeen. You know, that's the main reason for most folk. You know, and if you're into the whole Rangers are Protestant thing, well then that's, you know, prove you're staunch. That's enough. That's enough. You know, if you're relying on your football team winning to prove that, you know, being a Protestant is right or whatever like that, or being a Catholic is wrong, you're already, you know, barking up a pretty deranged tree. As your life's going to be pretty miserable anyway, because we very really like we won 7 trebles each. I think Rangers and Celtic, or Celtic are 8 now. I don't know, but that's the only times we win every trophy in Scotland. Very, very rare. So you're always going to be seriously upset if you're pinning your need for superiority on that. How did the game go tonight? Sorry, this is all over the place, folks, because we are all over the place as a supporter. I'm all over the place as somebody who pods about Rangers. How did it go? How did it start? Well, the problem started with the selection. I get why people are upset. Don't get me wrong. This is what we've scored. We scored our second domestic away goal, and that's particularly bad when we've played so many domestic away games. So one of my defences of the way we've started the season for Clement is the fact that maybe something to do with the fact we've not had our own stadium to play out of. In the first phase of Premiership fixtures this season, not yet over. We've still got Dundee to play. I think Hearts is actually our next fixture, playing Hearts at home after having already played them at Tynecastle. We've been to Tynecastle, we've been to Tannadice, beat Pittodrie, Parkhead, Rugby Park. These are all difficult places at the best of times. And Rugby Park has been notoriously difficult of late for both halves of the Old Firm. So it's been a difficult opening schedule, and I'm actually interested in seeing how we get on under Clement. You know, for the next phase of fixtures when we've got all these teams at home, we're playing all these clubs at home. But what the Aberdeen game did was it offered us, because of Aberdeen's, and I think it's an X factor. I think what's happened with Aberdeen is really skewed the way Clement's team's being judged, because I think there was a kind of understanding. Certainly, I had it anyway. I wasn't expecting to win the league this season. The noises coming out of Ibrox were we weren't going to win the league. It was a rebuild, and it was all kind of things are getting scaled down. The little kind of pronouncement we had from John Bennett, and then before he had to pack it in, you know, and all the best to him. Hope he's okay. Then John Gilligan, when he came out and did he took over interim chairman. He did me thing, and then all the stuff that's been coming from Clement, it's all been kind of emphasising this is going to take time. We're completely changing the squad. We're resizing. We're downsizing. So I was expecting second place was pretty much the most I was expecting, but it was also the least I was expecting as well. In many ways, it's that strange thing. I think a lot of you would feel the same. I mean, listen, Motherwell winning that game against Dundee United, that was a 6-pointer for them as well. That was the best kind of result for us, wasn't it? That keeps them. Third place is looking quite secure just now. 9 points, but 9 points off both the top two teams just now, both Aberdeen and Celtic, 9 points ahead of us. It's not yet November, which is both a condemnation because we're almost dropping a point on our, on the top two for every round of fixtures so far. But also there's the fact that we've still got 3 quarters of the season to go. But sorry, folks, this is absolutely terrible. I am just really struggling to. It's a gutting loss. It really is a gutting loss. And I know that a lot of people are really angry with it, and they're wanting me. I've actually people say get in touch, telling me I should be, basically telling the manager he needs to get sacked and all that. And it's before we've done the podcast. Like, why do people want to hear anger? I don't understand them. So we started it tonight. I think when the lineup's announced, I was saying last night there's always with Philip Clement, there's a wee kind of curveball with selection. Now he's got the curve. There's also there's a curveball with injury still. That's like the pronouncement that we would be better in October. I think the manager's made a rod for his own back with the injury thing. Talking last season as if he diagnosed what the injuries problem was, why we had so many injuries, and that something was being done about it. and he hasn't managed to cryo chamber his way out of this at all. The injuries are still really bad. Czerny, literally the foreign player, the guy who scored foreign, not foreign, he's foreign as well. He scored, was it something like 4 goals in 3 games? Just hitting absolutely brilliant form, and a really a trier, a guy who really puts his all into the game as well. He's injured. He's not playing straight away. That's a blow. So Ross McCausland comes in for him, but the Hefty being dropped at left back, I was talking about how we should treat this as a European game. We should treat this as a European game because our European away form's so good. And it was just like Malmo. Malmo 79 European Cup final, Aberdeen 83 Cup Winners' Cup final, European finals kind of 4 years away from each other. I seen Robert Pritz, who played for Rangers and Malmo, scoring twice. I was there when he scored once, the time he could beat 5-1. But he scored twice at Pittodrie for us. And I thought, we just treat it like a European away game because it's the same kind of stadium as well, same size as well, very tidy stadium, kind of comfortably over 20,000 capacity, but comfortably below 30,000 capacity, that same size of stadium, and they've got a Swedish manager, and it's all very comparable. And when you get the other night, and it's the flags and the smoke bombs, the same as it was when we went to Malmo. This is going to be great. We'll be on the same kit, that kind of Dundee thing that's been hit by paintballs. I thought that was the way. That was the way to do it. But Hefty, the European, we went to Malmo. Hefty was suspended. He'd been sent off against Dynamo Kiev, and it's like the manager was taking me really literally, and so he just dropped Hefty tonight. The guy who's been playing phenomenally at left back all season, and we're really still quite early in the season. He's tired. Why did you play him on Sunday then against St Mirren when you're dropping another guy? Don't worry. And at that point, Philip Clement comes on to explain himself. I don't want anybody thinking I am blindly just, kind of happy clappy. Don't be slagging the manager, because when he fucking started doing that, it's funny how someone just sets you off and lets you know how you're actually feeling. Aggressivity. When you see that, it's fucking aggression. You've been here for 13 months. Learn how to. Somebody tell him it's aggression, not aggressivity. And then he said, excuse me, I need to get up at smoking. He said, what's that other thing else? Busy. I'm not busy with this. Somebody just tell him the 2 words, preoccupied, concerned. Preoccupied. He can mix and match them as he wants. Stop saying, I'm not busy with this, I'm not busy with that. The 13 months you've been here, I know my Belgian's terrible. I don't know if he's a phlegm or a wallow. I've still not worked out if he's a natural Dutch speaker or French speaker. But basically, I can't speak any foreign languages. It puts me to shame. But you're in charge of Rangers. You're dealing with, we're speaking English, obviously at training and what have you. So get that. When I was reacting to that, I thought, I'm really pissed off with you dropping Hefty. And Chris Boyd took it to the nth degree with the whole kind of attack on sports science. But at that point, I think, does he need it to be a project? He's been talking about it too much. I think this has been mentioned before. I've certainly heard it mentioned in other podcasts. People saying, is he letting the players off with it before they're saying we can write off this season, basically? So when they go and gets tough, they can cop out. There's no pressure on them to perform almost, because I don't care. I get the fact that there's certain situations where you don't want to be given it. You need to be concentrating on your formations and your movement. That should be in training. You should have bounce games for that kind of stuff. Everyone's got to get stress tested as you go along as well, to make sure you're capable of just performing at the level. You need to go out there trying to win all the time. And I don't think they're trying to win, but when it gets to that point where you've got to push yourself a little bit further, if there's something in the back of your head saying, well, it's a rebuild, it doesn't really matter what we do this season, you end up getting the kind of away form we've got this season. But Aberdeen always give us a hard time at Pittodrie at least once a season. We're saying this, it's very rare for them to actually beat us up there, but they're always drawn with us. They're always taking 2 points off us there. So typically, because they're on amazing form just now, they've actually beaten us up there. But it's like, because they're in such amazing form, it's a second marquee game really early. Parkhead is the one, playing Celtic, that's the one that everybody's going to really judge the manager on. That's your chance to get a result that's going to boost the support and give you a bit of credit in the bank. Well, we got a second one, because Aberdeen had done so well. Now, Aberdeen have drawn with Celtic at Parkhead. We get beat 3-0 at Parkhead. So, strictly speaking, they should be beating us at Pittodrie, and they've beaten us by just a single goal. That's fine. The managers are talking about... But I feel as if there's a kind of feel... It was almost like he's withdrawn Hefty to kind of say, I'm just concentrating on keeping the players rotating and all that. I'm not really concentrating on we need to win this game, get these bastards beat. And I think a bit of his reaction in the presser, or something in the interview with Luke, Steve Lamack, Shanley, was just kind of a bit shocked that he was being pushed so hard on, this isn't good enough. Basically, somebody saying this isn't acceptable, and he's like, I've been trying to tell you, for the last few months, this is the best you're going to get. Well, I'm going to rebuild here. It's like the Bears are going to eat you alive, Phil. I'm just trying to let you know. I felt as if that was a major faux pas. So, and not just that, but he's bringing in Kassan Weirjo at left back, who was clearly never looked more right-footed than when he played in Malmo at left back. But we did really well as a team that night, so he wasn't pressured at all. Kassan Weirjo, but it's not just that, but the young fella, he played it right back on Sunday and then centre half. So he's dropped the guy who's been playing at left back, even though he's actually, I think, primarily an outside left attacking player. But he's brought in a guy who's been playing at left back for the best part of the whole season so far. And he's put in a guy who played two different positions in the previous game into a third position tonight. It wasn't good, and we weren't good. I mean, it's Dessers up front. You've got, to say, Ross McCaws on the right-hand side, Bajrami, and he's basically the slot that he seems to like now on the left-hand side. And Tom Lawrence, as I was thinking, did come back in at 10, and John Suter did come back in at centre-half alongside Balogun, as I was anticipating. Tav's the captain, and it was Barron and Raskin as a sitting midfielders. So that was all expected, but Cherney being dropped, Cherney being injured was a real blow. And Kassan Weirjo, that was a weird one. Kassan Weirjo coming in instead of Hefty being dropped was really bad. I felt as if that was the one that gave you the fear straight away. And Rangers did not play particularly brilliantly in the first spell of the game. Although after about 3 minutes, I thought it was going to be the same as the start in Malmo. Apart from the kind of the songs, that great Aberdeen, the huge variety they've got. In their song sheet, Aberdeen, stand free, whatever you may be, Aberdeen. Those two songs, they really do. They mix and match them absolutely fantastically. This whole kind of North Sea thing. I mean, Aberdeen have won the league 4 times in their entire history, just going from the fish oil to the kind of petroleum oil, the halibut to the Halliburton. It's this. Alex Ferguson up there and won 3 league titles in 6 seasons, basically, with Aberdeen. Through, yes, they had money, but and they were organised behind the scenes. And he's a tactical genius. He's a great manager, Ferguson, but he's vindictive. It's aggressive. It's intimidating. It's a bitterness to how Alex Ferguson. And a lot of that bitterness was directed towards Rangers for very personal reasons, but. Jimmy Tellon's just a really nice guy. I kind of see. If he wins the league, I would actually quite like to see Aberdeen going all the way with Celtic, and we'll see how long the Celtic and Aberdeen love-in lasts. If Aberdeen actually dare to challenge Celtic for the title, I'm assuming they were all cheering their heads off at Parkhead tonight when they heard that Aberdeen had won that game, even though it still means they're neck and neck with the Dons. But it'd be quite interesting to see how it goes. But we were straight away, the ball kind of over the top. Dessers nearly got in the end of it, as Dessers always does. We had a wee chance within the second or third minute, and then it wasn't happening. We just weren't getting any presence at all in their box. We were kind of a lot of last ditch defending. Balogun kind of going in his arse and stuff like that, and but Rami was having to come back and help out Kassan Weirjo, and I don't know if it was helping him or hindering him. A few dodgy tackles in our own box. It wasn't good, and Aberdeen eventually scored a goal, which is, I mean, James Tavernier had a terrible game tonight. It was absolutely terrible. He's involved in was it the shy? Yeah, I think he kind of doesn't do he does something terrible at least the ball that comes in for the shy, and he's no marking properly, but nobody is. I mean, the guy has they basically chip a ball towards the edge of our 6-yard box, and then the guy is able to head it down. Maybe he's trying to head for a goal, a missed header, and the marking's terrible. But there's nobody near any Aberdeen players, even though it's actually in the middle of the 18-yard box. And of course, you heard Chris Boyd breaking down the way that Kassan Weirjo completely failed to pick up Nicky Devlin, or Bajrami completely failed to pick him up as well. But Kassan Weirjo's been played out of position, the third position in the space of 2 games. I can't really blame them too much, but they basically walked it into the back of the net, and then Shinnie's having a shot off the edge of the box. It comes back off the post, and then about 2 minutes later, they've got a penalty. It goes to VAR. That's a long wait, but I mean, I don't know what the handball rule is these days. And unlike other people who go, I mean, I don't even know what the handball rule is, and then tell you what the decision should have been. I'll just stand back and go, because I don't know the handball rule, it's a penalty. The referee gives it a penalty, it must be a penalty. The ball's travelled about 10 yards, and Big Suter's hand did slightly move towards it, so the penalty is. And the third penalty, I think, that Jack Butland has now saved for Rangers, but they've all been shit. They've all been really bad. I don't know if he's actually saying something, getting these players' heads, but he missed the penalty. We have the ball in the back of the Aberdeen net right in the stroke of half-time, and it was ruled out for offside, really, really close offside in the build-up. I think it was Dessers who always manages to get it just wrong. He's a terrible run just now. In moments like this, he's all sugar or shite basically for Cyril Dessers. So the goal's ruled out. Bit of a VAR review there, and that's a bit unlucky. Whatever. And the manager certainly played that up in the post-match reaction with Luke Shanley. But we come back out in the second half, and Ross McCausland, who put the ball in the back of the net for the offside goal, he has been replaced by Dujon Sterling. And we are pretty magnificent for 20-25 minutes, and that's straight away. I can hear, playing well for 25 minutes isn't good enough, and the manager was talking about that. Well, we played really great, but we did actually played really well for 20 to 25 minutes. But it's that whole thing we've been doing for years. Not just Philip Clement. Rangers have been doing this for years since we come back up through the leagues. Doing that thing where, particularly at Robbie Park and Pittodrie, I think, where we start badly, or we have a great spell where we'll score at least once, but there's just an undertow. There's something that's the pattern has been kind of set mentally at some other point, and we're never going to see it out. And it was the same thing we get the goal. The goal was a thing of absolute beauty. After 60, 62, 63 minutes, something like that, we basically work it from our own box through a few players, and it goes to Bishrami out on the left-hand side, and he does most of the hard work, it has to be said, carrying the ball into the box and beating two Aberdeen players, one of them being Shinnie, and then just pokes it within his stride. Fantastic shot along the deck, right into the far corner. It's in the back of the net before Aberdeen even know he's shooting. It's a fantastic goal. But kind of straight away, I wasn't convinced. You're thinking we need to get a quick second, and we did break on them. We got the ball back off him straight away from kick-off. And Tom Lawrence is one of those swingers that just goes way over the bar. You're thinking, I think it's supposed to go, that was so close, we're on top of things now, but you just know we need to score these chances. We had another move, I think, maybe approaching the 70 minute. At this point, Aberdeen make 3 substitutions, make a triple substitution, and that starts to slowly change momentum. But before it does completely, we had a brilliant move, which Sterling swinging the ball from the right hand side. He slides as he cuts the ball across the box, and Dessers goes in there and should hit it first time and doesn't. But it's just, it's almost like I preferred it when we were making no chances to making chances and missing them. And after that, Aberdeen are up the park, and the second goal, the goal that wins it, is just, it's like a 5-minute long car crash. There's just so much wrong with it. It starts with them floating a free kick about the 73rd minute into our box, which we don't deal with properly, and it's everything after that is just about them being better organised and faster. Better organised. In fact, they're overlapping, they're underlapping, they're first to everything, and Rangers are kind of, they know, unlucky, I think, with the way the ball comes back out off the post. Eventually, we bring somebody down. The thing for me is, at one point, there's a tackle. We make a tackle at the back of our box. Aberdeen player hits the deck and gets straight back up and just carries on playing. And it's as if we're looking to see if they're going to appeal for a penalty. Rather than them appealing for a penalty, the ball goes across the face of the goal and comes back out of the inside of the post, and the Aberdeen players are on it quicker, and it eventually gets swept into the net. And after that, it's a bit of huffing and puffing. But we don't look much worse than Aberdeen, but we're certainly no better than them, and we have lost the game. And it's just all about the overall record now this season for Philip Clement. It's also about what do we want to achieve, what are we actually setting as a target. And as I say, I think Aberdeen coming in there and being so good, it's just something nobody had factored in, including Aberdeen. So should we judge the manager? Should we judge our manager on on the fact that Aberdeen have been brilliant. Aberdeen are playing exceptionally well. So maybe, strictly speaking, if you don't want to panic, if you don't want to be changing managers every year, we just need to check. I think we're at this stage we need to check. We need to give the manager if we get beaten in the Cup semi-final on Sunday, then that's, to Motherwell, that's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. It's one too many. It's not a one-off now. But I still feel as if there's enough there to make this too early to sack him. It's not enough there, perhaps, to say that he's the man to keep leading us for the foreseeable future. But I think he's done too much for us to be sacking him just at this point in time. Sorry, folks. I've got to think. I just keep thinking of really horrible things to say. I know this has dragged on for ages, but that's because I'm trying to get rid of Celtic fans at the beginning. You'll know now just to fast forward. And I also know that I'm not getting rid of the Celtic fans, but I'm trying to make this as boring as possible for them. But you're thinking tonight, is Conor Barron going to be involved for 2 seasons? They're separated by 13 months, playing for Rangers and Aberdeen in games against each other that get the Rangers manager sacked. But I don't know. I don't think he's going to be getting sacked before Sunday, before the game against Motherwell in the League Cup semi. And on Saturday, Aberdeen will lose their first domestic game of the season. Or if not, maybe not. Maybe I'd be quite impressed if they didn't. But I just, the whole thing for me, when what's his name? From the Manic Street Preachers, I'm totally losing it. When he was getting interviewed by Steve Lamack, and he did the whole thing for Richie Edwards, when Steve Lamack's asking him, are the Manics for real? You a lot of big talk about how big a band you're going to be, what your politics are, how great your music's going to be. You're going to sell so many records and revolutionise the British music industry. A lot of big chat, but can we actually? But is it not just bullshit? And the next thing, Richie Edwards, of course, has famously carved the words "for real" into his forearm with a razor blade. And I always thought that was unreal. That was kind of surreal. That really wasn't. That wasn't good. I mean, Richard was awful musician. Obviously, he used to unplug his guitar, but he looked the part. He definitely had the style. He set the tone politically for the Manics, and a great lyric writer as well. The Holy Bible's probably my favourite album of all time. That was maybe joint favourite. It's a phenomenal album, and he had his moment. But this idea that he was proving something, he was proving how intense they were by carving something in his arm. It just reminds me of the Simon Munnery thing. Somebody else always talks about this quote. Somebody more famous than Simon Munnery always talks about it. Simon Munnery, the comedian, has this line that many people are prepared to suffer for their art, but very few are prepared to learn how to draw. And I think I'm supposed to be pulling my hair out and all that. Oh, I've not got any hair anyway, 10 stone ago, Dougie, I'm supposed to be pulling my hair out and kind of banging the table and crying and working myself into a frenzy and shouting and swearing and all that, and this kind of performative anxiety, this kind of solipsistic, my pain, my team's defeat means more than your joy, your team's victory. It's totally unsporting in a really basic sense. I know I'm supposed to hate Aberdeen and all that, but there's, you shake hands with your opponents and stuff. There's basic crossings of the line involved. I hate all that stuff. If you cry when you win and you try to suck it up when you lose, I'm more angry about the reaction from some of our fans to defeat tonight than I am to Rangers actually getting defeated. We can't see how the teams play. We can't see any. We're terrible at the back. We're terrible up front, and we don't carry a lot of the ball in midfield. The problems are there to be seen. But for me, it's also, if you are going to do the kind of reset that Rangers need to do, you will have to go backwards before you're going to go forward. And I think we've seen enough home form. The way we played against FCSB, even if it is the reserves, you could see there how we actually operate, when the dream, if you like. We've seen it when we humped Ross County 6-0. You can see the plan, and then we played a lot of games, 5 domestic games straight after European games, and we've won a lot of them. And I was saying last night, that is a real feat. So it's not as if there's nothing there. There's no signs that the manager kind of knows what he's doing, but there's also big signs that the players are maybe disheartened, apart from anything else. But I feel as if this just just follow your team. Just support your team. We can't win all the time. I know it's our Rangers and they've gone too long without winning league titles, but for me, as always, what happened is in 2012, we didn't die, but it was a massive trauma. It's if we're talking in terms of death and all that for a football club, it's the equivalent of a stroke or a major cardiac event or losing a limb or something. It's going to take you a while and a lot of care and attention. It's going to be slow before you get back to normal. And I think we're looking at 2032, as I say, before we're back to anything like we should be. So I'm not particularly panicking about this when we have to reset again. Who are we getting? I mean, Eric Ten Hag, Gareth Southgate, they're waiting in the wings. Steven Gerrard, he could probably come back and buy us now. He could probably bought us the first time he came here as manager. He could definitely come back and buy the whole club now. Maybe that's what we need. Never mind, you just fill all the positions. We've got a player, manager, chairman, director of football, CEO. Steven Gerrard can do the lot, whatever. But I don't really see. See, I was wrong with Walter Smith, and I didn't want Walter coming back in 2000, and I was wrong about that. He came in and he just gave me everything I'd wanted under Guen. So, just because it doesn't seem like a good thing to be changing manager every year, it doesn't mean that the next time we change the manager, it won't be to the benefit of the club. It won't actually work out brilliantly. But I find it difficult to imagine right now. Like, I'm just talking rubbish, folks, because it's been a rubbish night, and this is far too long a pod. I'll come back and do a preview for the Motherwell game. But until then, just, I don't know, stay sane, stay safe. I can't manage either.